Hello, this is Chris at Perfect Mondays, and if you're a woman entrepreneur who consistently feels unappreciated, today I'm going to be sharing with you the 4-step perfect recipe for you to feel unappreciated and undermined. So stick around. Hi, this is Chris at Perfect Mondays, the place for women entrepreneurs who want to work smarter instead of harder, the place for women who want to build a business without drama and without overwhelm. So if you're a conscious woman entrepreneur and you want to build your business, if you want to do things where you don't have to sacrifice your lifestyle, this is a place for you. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a really powerful lesson that I got this past week about how people do things to feel completely unappreciated. I have the fortune of helping a couple of women who were negotiating something really difficult, and I understood a process that kept one of them feeling consistently unappreciated. And the more that I ask better questions and I understand about human rules, what are the things that have to happen for people to feel a specific way, the more that I understood this 4-step process that I'm going to share with you right now. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because after I had that conversation, I had my 4 little distilled points, and I started sharing it with different women. And when I shared it with them, they started saying, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I do." And people saying, "Oh my God, I feel the same way. Oh my God, I can see myself in that conversation." So without sharing the details of the conversation, I can share with you this 4-step process that I understood keeps a lot of people completely stuck, a lot of women completely stuck and feeling unappreciated and undermined. So what is step number 1? What is the recipe for disaster in terms of feeling appreciated? It has to do with assumptions. Now, most people that do assumptions, they do it because we have to eliminate certain things in our life just to be able to get by and just be able to live our life. Let's say, for example, that you're driving down a highway where there's no middle lane. There's just one car going one direction and one car going to the other direction. Now, if you're driving there, you might have to assume that the people coming on the opposite direction are not going to be drunk, that they're reasonably good drivers. Otherwise, you would never even get in the car because you would be afraid you're going to die. So there's things that we do. We all the time, we're eliminating things in our life to be able to just process our life and be able to work and be able to not get paralyzed by thoughts. The problem is that there are certain assumptions that really come to bite us in the rear. And I see this happening all the time in conversations where someone comes to me and tells me, "Hey, I want to partner with this person and I want to do this type of relationship with this other, business relationship with this other person." And when I start asking deeper questions, I recognize that there's so many assumptions about what the partnership is going to be, the percentages, the responsibilities, all these different things. And those things, when they're not specified, come to bite you in the rear. Now, back to this conversation with these 2 women. One of them had an assumption about the other person, and that assumption was completely wrong. And because of that, that allowed her to do specific actions and certain things that made her feel really unappreciated. Now, with assumptions, it's not just having your feelings hurt when it comes to biting in the rear. I had a really powerful example several years ago when I was working with this, as a business owner with a company, and I lost a $500,000 deal. And part of the challenge of why I lost the deal was because I made a terrible assumption. There was a problem. I went into that to solve the problem, and I called the organization and I spoke with a few people and I thought I had solved it. Now, my assumption was that these people were really busy, so I just had a conversation and just went straight to fix the problem. Now, 1 week later, they came back and they terminated that $500,000 contract. And part of the reason that they cited was because I didn't take the time to go visit them in person and talk about these issues. Now, my assumption was that not only are they too busy, but they don't care about seeing me in person, which was a terrible mistake. And my question to you is, if you're consistently feeling unappreciated in your life, I love to think of what are the human beings that you're associating with. Like, just take one example of one person that you're feeling in conflict with, that you feel unappreciated by. And I'd like for you to ask yourself this question, honestly. What are some assumptions that I have about this person that are making it really hard for me to see eye to eye? What are some assumptions that I'm taking right now that might be coming to bite me in the rear? And when I say assumptions, sometimes it's difficult to even understand what the assumption is because assumptions are presented in our brain as truths. That's why they're so hard to see. It's like they're camouflaged in our mind. So it takes really taking a pause and thinking, like, really, what are some things that I have never talked to about with this individual that I just think are right, but I'm really not quite sure, and write those down. Now, we kept talking in this conversation about other things that were keeping this person stuck in this constant feeling of appreciation. And the second thing was changing the rules of the game. Okay? Worse yet, changing the rules of the game and not communicating them. Now, I'm gonna start telling this in a way that you can understand, because sometimes it's hard to see how we do this because we're perfect, of course. But I want you to think about a situation in your life, a relationship. Maybe it's easier to see in a personal relationship where you had an unspoken agreement and then the other person just changed the rules of the game. They didn't tell you about it. Like whether it's like, well, now I want to be a certain way or show up a certain way, and that was never communicated to you, and that created a lot of conflict. Now, we also do that all the time, and this person was having a difficult time understanding why person B was having such a hard time coping with it. And the challenge with changing the rules of the game is that it creates two things. Number one, it creates a lot of confusion. The question is, what the fuck just happened? I don't understand what happened. And number two, it creates resentment, because the other person starts creating stories and attaching feelings about the situation that maybe aren't fair, maybe are unfounded, maybe they're unclear, and that creates a lot of challenges. So I'd like for you to ask right now, if you're having conflict with someone, if you're feeling unappreciated by a team member, by a business partner, by someone in your life, what are some rules of the game that I may have changed? And what rules that I've changed have I not clearly communicated to the other person? That's a really powerful one. The third one, and this is a huge, huge problem, okay? And I wanted to, if I was gonna make you pause, write on big number 3, circle it around, put a highlighter on it, it will be this one, is giving people what you think they need. This is a major catastrophe for feeling unappreciated. Why? Because when you're doing something that in your mind is super valuable and in someone else's mind means nothing, then it's really hard. So imagine, for example, that you think that you're cooking this amazing meal. You spend, I don't know, 10 hours, an entire day. You clean your kitchen, you buy the stuff in the market, you create this amazing meal, you pair it with an incredible wine, and when you present it in the shape of a bag of potato chips, okay? This is how the other person might be perceiving those things that are really hard for you to do. And this is a big chunk of the problem when it comes to feeling unappreciated, is giving people what you think they want. Now, I've seen this a lot because I work with a lot of women entrepreneurs. Some of them have gone through divorces, some of them are going through a divorce, and oftentimes when I hear the stories that their husbands have presented, they are somewhat in the soundbite of, I gave her everything, absolutely everything. And I think to myself, yeah, you gave her everything except what she actually wanted, except what she actually needed. And I want you to ask right now, if you're having a conflict with someone, how many of the things that you perceive as high value, like incredible golden coins, are being perceived as marbles by the other person because you don't understand what they want? I'm gonna take it one step further. It's not just understanding giving people what they want, is also giving people what they want in the channel, the avenue, or the shape that they want it. So let's take the example of affection, right? Some people say, well, I want it to be more loving. And you can say, well, I'm saying thank you all the time. What the hell do you want? What more could I do for you? And the other person might receive affection in the form of a hug, or in the form of a gift, or in the form of praise in front of everyone. It doesn't really matter how you think you're gonna give that appreciation if the other person doesn't feel that way. Now, it gets a little more complex when you're talking about a business partner, when you talk about things that you think, I did so many things for the business, and maybe for the other person, those things aren't as valuable, even if they were difficult for you. So once more, ask yourself the question, what are some of the assumptions that I have about someone? How am I changing the rules? But specifically, am I giving people what I think they want instead of what they actually want and need? And step number 4, in terms of creating a perfect recipe for feeling unappreciated, are expectations. So let me boil this down to you. So you're, first of all, having, whether it is because you don't take the time, because you're unaware and you think those are truths, you're creating these assumptions about someone else. Then you're actually changing the rules of the game in ways that are creating resentment, which also comes back to haunt you in passive aggressiveness, in lack of commitment, in lack of receiving what you really want, in problems with communication. And then you also